Well, in just the last couple of weeks, we've seen the very last of the shutdown era cruise CEOs vacate his position. Of course, I'm talking about Norwegian Cruise Line Holding CEO Frank Del Rio. He is on his way out, and questions are stirring around his exit. Was he forced out? Was it planned? Should he have gotten paid as much as he did during the shutdown? I talk about all of those things with my guest for this week's podcast, Doug Parker from Cruise Radio. I want to share an excerpt from that podcast, specifically about the exit of the cruise CEOs and an interesting conversation about their pay. Were they forced out? Were they not? Did they make too much money? Let's talk about it. I could have spent a month in Japan when I went there, so it's a lot of fun. But okay, so now we know your origin story. Let's talk about some topical cruise stuff. I think one of the bigger stories this week, and of course you do the daily news, it's like 6 or 7 every morning that you publish a video and you publish an audio version of that.
Yeah, it goes live at 7 a.m. Eastern every morning. I
watch it every day. I mean, this is like one of those things that if you want to get the news in the morning, go check out Doug's news on YouTube. What was funny is when you talked this past week about the exit of Frank Del Rio, I saw you pause a little bit to talk about how much compensation he got during the cruising shutdown. And it's an interesting conversation, I think, but let's look at the macro first. We are almost 2 years since cruising shut down. I guess, if we consider June or July to be the month that cruising returned back in, 2021. Since then, we've seen the exit of now all the CEOs that were in charge of the major cruise companies, at least Royal, Norwegian, and Carnival. We've had Richard Fain exit. We've had Arnold Donald exit. And now we've had Frank Del Rio exit. What do you think about those exits in general? Do you think that they left because of the turmoil? Do you think the timing was right? I feel like all three of those guys did a lot for the cruising industry, but now they're gone. So what do you make of all that?
So first off, I think that new blood is good. I think change is good. I think at the end, it matters if the decision makers make the cruisers happy, because the Norwegian's been doing a couple of things. This is aside from Frank, or it might be part of Frank, I don't know. But Norwegian's been doing some things that have really had a lot of people canceling cruises. I mean, I had probably a dozen emails over the past 2 months of people canceling their NCL sailing and going over to Royal or going to Carnival or Celebrity because they were just fired up with the different things they were doing. Now, that aside, I'm not putting that blame on Frank, but I think that Frank I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be starting his exit because his contract was running out and it was supposed to happen during the shutdown. Of course, we didn't know the shutdown was going to happen, but he was going to kind of bow out gracefully 2020 or so. Same thing with Fain. Fain wanted to stick it through. I mean, he wanted to make sure because he was kind of a figurehead. Like he developed a lot of the cruise ship technology we see out there. He developed a lot of cool stuff. I was at dinner with him and he was talking about like even the sprinkler systems, I think they're called like the high fog systems. Like that was him that was working with engineers to develop this suppression unit that wouldn't flood a ship when a sprinkler system happened if there was a fire, and it wouldn't make the ship off kilter and flip over or lean over because it's high fog and it's really more effective than water. All these guys were supposed to make their exit during the shutdown, but pre-shutdown, like, during the time of the shutdown, they were all supposed to just kind of bow out and pass the torch, if you will. And Arnold Donald was there for it would have been, 10 years, I think, would be 10 years this year. So it's kind of a long time for a cruise line CEO. You don't really see them hanging in there for that long. People want to do their own thing. And look how much money they're making. What Frank made, I mean, it was stock options and everything, but all in, he made like $32 million in 2020. Now, a lot of that was bonuses carried over from 2019, but still, $32 million when you fire 20 to 40% of your staff in every single one of your 17 or 16 ship employees. That's a lot of money to be taken when you're, I don't know. I have my own, I don't want to opinionize anything, but I have my own thoughts on all this. But I think it's a changing of the guard. They have a shelf life. And I think that things are we're back up and running now. So these cruise lines and these executives can make their exit and not, they can say, we led you through the the restart. Hell, they can write a book, have a movie about them, whatever, because look what they've done. I mean, regardless what you say or how these people, how you want to characterize them, they did some crazy stuff, man, for not taking any kind of outside money from anyone. That's, I mean, a lot of the CFOs and stuff too, are the unsung heroes there, but it's just like, it's just crazy that financing and getting $34 billion in loans. Like, yeah, it's insane to what these people did. At the end, they probably deserve everything that they've gotten, but probably should have deferred that a little bit and not had it published $32 million in 2020.
Yeah, I think unfortunately Frank was a victim of the SEC, right? And anytime you get that payment, it's got to be public. Yeah, like when you said that on your show the other day, I was thinking about that. It's a weird scenario. I was trying to put myself in those positions. I agree with you. So everything that I've seen is, of course, these guys were of age to move on. The time was there to move on. I do respect the fact that they stayed through the shutdown, right? It would have been an easy time to, just cut out.
Yeah.
Well, this looks bad. I'll see you guys later. I did my time. I'm taking my money and I'm going. But it is an interesting thing. Like, I do believe in taking care of people. I believe that the best forms of leadership are benevolent leaderships where you're really looking out for your people. But it's such a weird thing in the corporate world is that sometimes you really have to look out for yourself. And, it's what I have been willing. I mean, he was getting a lot of money, right? But maybe I don't have a perspective on what $32 million looks like. But say I was making $120,000 and I could save somebody's job by cutting 30% of my salary. I don't know that I would have had the ability to do that, right? Because you get in, especially in such a tumultuous time, like, well, maybe the world doesn't start back up again. Maybe this company goes bankrupt. And if I can get my big pile of cash, maybe I should get my big pile of cash. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I just think it sparked an interesting thought in me. Like, is it all relative, right? Would everybody take a 30% pay cut, or is the amount of money that guy have so exorbitant that he should have taken a pay cut? I think it's like you said, it's just us forming opinions, but to me, it's an interesting conversation. I don't know what I would have done in that circumstance.
I don't know. I can tell you that when the shutdown happened, I have one full-time employee, Sarah. And
there you go. Doug spitting some fire. And look, I cut this conversation off on purpose. It's wild what Doug did during the shutdown to make sure that his business stayed afloat. But to hear the rest of that story, you're going to have to go over and check out the podcast. You can get that in Audible form, any of the places where you get podcasts. But if you want to see the video of Doug and I chopping it up about this topic and some other very interesting topics, including what's wrong with people on cruise ships right now, well, you have to go check out the podcast. I will leave that linked in the pinned comment below this video. Also, all the podcasts are over at the secondary La Lita Loca channel called the La Lita Loca Presents. Go check that out. Thanks again, Doug, for this conversation, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Leave a comment below, leave a like, subscribe. Thank you in advance. This is Tony for La Lita Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.